Hi guys, welcome back to the Wargamer and another Age of Sigmar painting tutorial. In this video I'll be showing you how you can paint the Putrid Blight Kings in a dark green armor colour, and as always I'll be using the Citadel range of paints to do so. Before we can begin painting our miniature, we first of all need to prime it, and this is so that the layers of paint will adhere to the miniature correctly. Now I've used a grey primer for this, and the reason I've used grey is I find that lots of paints cover much better over a grey base coat than they do white or black. Now you may notice that I've only part assembled this miniature. This is so I can get into those hard to reach areas much more easily. It also prevents any paint spilling over from other areas in those hard to reach places. After priming, the first area that I'll be painting will be the green skin of the Putrid Blight King. Now before we can actually get the green colouring, we first of all need to give it a really pallid and pale colouring. So for this, I'm going to be applying a base coat of Celestra Grey over all of the exposed skin areas. When applying your base coats, you want to create a mixture of 2 parts paint to 1 part water. Apply this over the surface of the flesh, allow it to dry thoroughly, and then apply a second layer over the top. By doing this layering technique, we ensure that we get the best coverage possible, without the chance of obscuring any details by applying the paint too thickly. With our base coat of Celestra Grey completed, the next step is to apply a wash of Athonian Camoshade over the entirety of the skin. This wash will not only enhance the details by flowing into all of those recesses, creating shading, but it will also give the skin a pallid green colouring, which is perfect for a follower of Nurgle. After allowing our Athonian Camoshade wash to dry, the next step is to apply a second wash, but this time we'll be targeting it into those recesses instead of applying it over the entirety of the miniature. Now this time we want to use Coelia Greenshade. By using 2 different colours of green, we not only make the skin a lot more interesting to look at, but we also enhance that rotting and necrotic look that the flesh has. In addition to applying the Coelia Greenshade as a targeted wash, you can also apply it as a general wash across other body parts on the miniature, such as this extra head which is dangling from the pauldron of our Blight King. The next step in painting the skin is to apply an edge highlight of Krieg Khaki. Now to edge highlight, you want to take a small brush with just a small amount of paint on the tip of that brush. You want to lightly drag it on some of the more harsher, stronger edges of the miniature. This will create some lighter lines, which really helps to create a difference between the darker areas and the recesses and the lighter areas at these hard points, and really bring out the detail that we have in this miniature. With our skin completed for now, we can now start working on the dark green armour of our Blight Lord. Now you want to paint these areas using Incubi Darknes. You want to paint the entirety of the armour. Remember to create that mixture of 2 parts paint to 1 part water, and apply at least 2 thin down coats. In order to darken down the armour colour a little bit more, and also to bring out some of the details, I'll now be applying a wash of non-oil across the entirety of the armour. With our wash completed, we can now start highlighting all those harsh edges that we have on the armour using Kabalite Green. When highlighting the armour, don't forget to also highlight the edges of all those pock marks that we have in the surface of the armour as well. The final step in painting the armour is to apply an extreme highlight of Sybarite Green. Now much like our regular highlights, we're going to be using a small brush, just a small amount of paint on the tip of that brush, but this time we only want to focus on some of the stronger points on the edges, such as the corners, some of the raised rivets, and also some of the areas towards the top of the miniature. This extreme highlight really helps to give an appearance of sharpness or a harsher edge than is actually present on the miniature. It's a really great way of enhancing the detail that we already have. The next area of our Blight King that I'll be painting will be any ropes or pouches that your Blight King may be carrying, and for this we want to start off with a base coat of Dryad Bark. Once you have completed your base coat, you can now wash over your rope and also your pouches using Agrax Earthshade. The final step in painting the ropes and pouches is to highlight the edges and really pick out those details using Gorthor Brown. Now many of the Blight Kings have horns or antlers, and we're going to be starting off by painting these areas with the base coat of Rhinox Hide. With our base coat of Rhinox Hide completed, we can now start highlighting the tips of the horns and antlers using Doombull Brown. In addition to highlighting the horns with Doombull Brown, I'm also going to be base coating some of the metal areas on the miniature using this colour as well. Now these areas include the blade on the shoulder, any chainmail, and also the weaponry as well. Now this Doombull Brown will give us a really nice red rust colour that we can use to start painting these metal areas with. Going back to the horns and the antlers, we now want to apply a final extreme highlight of Skrag Brown to the very tips. With the horns completed, we can now go back to painting our rusty metal. Now the next step is to apply a dry brush of Ryza Rust over all the areas that we painted with Doombull Brown. To dry brush, take some paint on the tip of your brush, remove most of the excess onto a spare piece of paper or a tissue, and then lightly drag it across the areas that we want to dry brush. The small amount of paint that's been left on your brush will slowly build up on the surface and pick out some of the raised sections really quickly and really easily, which is perfect for getting that rust effect that we want to achieve here. The final step in painting our rusty metal areas is to apply a second dry brush of Ironbreaker. By dry brushing the Ironbreaker onto these areas, we help to maintain the effect that these areas are in fact metal that's become rusted, rather than just red-brown coloured areas. When dry brushing the Ironbreaker on, pay particular attention to the sharper corners and also the bladed edges as well. With the rusted metal areas completed, we can now start painting the bronze detailing that we have on this miniature, and for this we want to use a base coat of Sycorax Bronze. So at this stage our Blight King is pretty much completed, but there are a few optional steps that we can add to this miniature to improve the detailing. First of all, I'll be applying a wash of Carroburg Crimson to the various open sores that we have around the skin. The red colouring that we're applying here will contrast strongly against the green skin and really draw attention to these additional details that we have scattered across the miniature. Next up, I'm going to be applying some additional corrosion to our metal areas, both the rusted metal and also the bronze areas as well. And for this we're going to be using a wash of Typus Corrosion. Continuing with our metal areas, we can then apply some verdigris effects to our bronze areas. And for this, I'll be using Nihilakh Oxide. Now you want to focus this particular wash around some of the various joints and rivets that we have on our bronze areas. The final detail that I'll be adding to my Blight King will be some ichor which is seeping out of the various pockmarks and holes in his armour. Now for this, we want to use some Moot Green and a very small brush. You just want to take a very small amount of paint on the tip of that brush and create some vertical lines emanating from those positions on the armour. This very bright green should stand out really nicely against the dark green armour that we painted earlier in this video. And here we have the finished Blight King. You can see I've fully assembled and also based. Now in the description below you can find a full list of the paints that I've used in this video, along with links to both my Facebook group, The Wargamers, and also my Facebook page as well. If you enjoyed this video, then please do let me know in the comments below, and also make sure you check out my previous Rotbringer tutorial if you want to paint a more realistic skin tone and a lighter green coloured armour as well. Now I just want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters, because it's you guys who make these videos possible. It's your support which allows me to buy the miniatures and paints that I use in these videos, and I just want to say a huge thank you. If you're interested in helping to support these videos as well, you can do so by checking out my Patreon page. From there you can donate to me from as little as $1 a month, which just really helps me in producing this content. And so with that, the final thing left to say is thanks for watching, and goodbye.